Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Injury Law Pod. I am your host, Eric Bartlett, 28-year personal injury lawyer. And this is the podcast where we talk about all things personal injury law related. Sometimes it's farther on the spectrum as far as how it relates to personal injury law, but it usually has some tie in to what I do every day. And so we just came off of Boating Safety Week, and May is just chock full of awareness weeks, awareness month. And so it was hard for me to get everything in. But leading up to Memorial Day, that week is Boating Safety Week for good reason. People are going to be hitting the lakes. They're going to be out on boats. It's a great time. Jet skis, whatever it might be. It's a great time to just bring awareness to the dangers that are out there with boats. At the end of the day, these are motorized vehicles, and we have seen plenty of boating and jet ski accidents over the years. And so the danger's real. And usually through the summertime, you just have to check out the news and you're going to see there's some accident that occurred at one of the area lakes. And even though this Memorial Day in Missouri was not phenomenal for boating, the weather wasn't great, the summer's about ready to kick off and there's going to be plenty of activity on the water. And so it's just the perfect time to talk about how a fun day on the water can quickly turn dangerous and what the legal consequences might be if it does. So let's look at some quick stats on boating accidents just to highlight what exactly I'm talking about. So according to, I should say, the U.S. Coast Guard data, and they have data up to 2022 and then up to 2023. Between 2015 and 2020, Missouri averaged approximately 174 boating accidents annually. So you think about that again, the time window for people being out on boats isn't that long, and yet you have nearly 200 accidents annually. And in 2020, there were 203 reported boating accidents with 13 deaths and 77 injuries. And at the Lake of the Ozarks, obviously the biggest lake in Missouri, there in 2022, the U.S. Coast Guard recorded 61 boating accidents at the Lake of the Ozarks. And from Memorial Day to July of 2023, in that year, there were at least 3 drownings, 13 serious injuries were reported on the lake. As far as holiday weekend incidents, July 4th, 2023, for example, the Missouri State Highway Patrol, who works the waterways of Missouri, they reported 6 boating crashes, resulting in 2 injuries and 4 drownings. And then Labor Day of 2024, there were 3 boating crashes, leading to 8 injuries and 2 deaths. So again, very real danger. If you're going to be out there, you've got to know. We're going to talk about some safety tips, common accident scenarios, legal rights and liabilities, and real case examples. So National Boating Safety Week is sponsored by the National Safe Boating Council, and it's supported by the U.S. Coast Guard. The goals are, number one, raise awareness about life jacket use. So not surprisingly, majority of people out on boats aren't wearing life jackets, which is fine. It's not always obviously a necessity, but you certainly need to make sure your boat is equipped with life jackets in the event they're needed, that they're readily accessible. Boating Safety Week is also there to promote safe boating practices, and it's there to reduce accidents and fatalities. 100% of fatal boating accident victims in Missouri were not wearing a life jacket at the time of the incident. And again, makes sense, right? Life jackets can certainly be the difference between life and death. And it just can't be stressed enough. They need to be readily accessible if you're going to be out on the water. And Not surprising, common causes of accidents on the water. Number one, alcohol use. People get out on the boat, they're drinking. This leads to problems. The other thing is high speed. People operating boats at speeds that are not safe for being out there on the water. And then finally, inexperienced drivers. It doesn't take a lot to be able to operate a boat on Missouri waterways, Kansas waterways. And so there's people that might be in control of a boat and quite frankly, they don't know what they're doing. So all of this can lead to problems with boats. Jet skis, again, are very rare. We personally here at our law firm have handled jet ski accidents, but operator inattention, alcohol use, mechanical failure, poor weather or visibility, and overloading boats are all things that we see involved in waterway accidents. So when any of these hazards lead to injury or death, even if unintentional, the legal consequences can be serious. Obviously, there can be serious injury and there can be death. And when that happens and somebody is at fault for that, there's responsibility. And what it means legally on the water is that there can be owner liability, operator liability, there can be rental boat liability. Obviously, the actual driver of the boat, they are responsible if they cause an accident. But if the owner of a boat has put somebody at the helm to operate the boat and they're not qualified to operate that boat, that can come back on the owner of the boat. And then again, if you're out there, you've rented a boat, depending on the circumstances, whether the rental company had you sign a waiver and made sure that there was insurance, things like that, it could come back on the rental boat company for placing somebody in a boat when they were not qualified to operate that boat. So some of the common scenarios, of course, collisions between boats and jet skis or between jet skis, whatever that looks like. That's a common scenario of accidents. The other one is wake injuries. So a wake is obviously what's created by the boat's motor. And if you've been out on a lake, you know there are certain areas where it's a no wake zone, meaning you're supposed to be going at a very minimal speed, not creating a large wake so that it doesn't cause problems for other boaters, jet skiers, the docks that are alongside the shore of the lake, things like that. And then again, drunk boating, which is literally boating under the influence, again, huge factor in a lot of these accidents. And then sadly, a lot of people, again, if there's an accident or the boat is mishandled, somebody is ejected from the boat, falls off the boat, and they drown. And again, that's where a lack of safety gear can play into that particular type of situation. So, coming out of a boat accident, it looks a lot like a car accident. People are injured, there's medical cost, there's the pain and the suffering that somebody might go through from a serious injury. Again, there can be lost income if somebody's not able to work. And then, there can be a wrongful death claim if somebody is killed. So, just like we see on the roadways where we have car accidents, all the same things can come out of an accident on the water. You need to make sure if you have a boat that you have the proper insurance, that boat is insured. Because again, if you cause an accident or somehow are responsible for an accident, you want to make sure you have insurance. That way, again, you could be sued if you cause an accident. And if you don't have insurance, you could find yourself in hot water. So you want to make sure that your boat is properly documented, that you're keeping up with regular maintenance on the boat, things like that. You just want to do everything you can to avoid a problem out on the water. So, what are the top boating safety tips? Again, you should always wear a life jacket. That's what's recommended. And again, it doesn't happen nearly enough. But most importantly, life jackets should be readily available. There should be a life jacket for every person on that boat. And if there's an incident, it should be readily available to get to a person. If somebody falls in the water, a flotation device, things like that. Because the problem is at a lake, obviously, if somebody goes under and they don't reappear, it's hard to find them. And again, lakes can be very deep, they can be murky. And so it's a real threat when that happens. Again, if you're going to be out on the lake and you're going to be having a fun day out on the lake and there's going to be alcohol involved, you need to designate a sober driver. It just doesn't pay to be drinking and operating a vessel that can cause serious injury or death. You should also check the weather before you go out. Again, bad weather can come up quickly and that can lead to bad consequences. You need to make sure that you also, in addition to life jackets, have other essential gear, lights, a whistle, flares, things of that nature, that if there's a problem out there on the water, you're prepared to potentially summon for help, alert other boaters and those on the water that you might have a problem, something like that. Now, we'll have a link, but you can learn more about all of this at safeboatingcampaign.com. And I would recommend it. Again, if you're going to be out there in a boat, you should know all of this. Legal best practices. Number one, you should take a boating safety course. They're offered. If you're born after a certain year, you have to do that. And that's a great thing, in my opinion. Older people like myself, we're not subject to that. And again, if you're going to be regularly operating a boat, it never hurts to take a boater safety course and make sure you understand all of the potential problems and how to avoid those. You need to keep your boat insured, like I just mentioned. You need to know your local laws and speed limits for a lake. You need to document any accidents thoroughly. So if an accident does occur, you need to make sure that, just like a car accident or something like that, if there's witnesses, you get photographs, you make sure that there's any damage that's done, all of that is properly recorded, because again, it may come back as a necessity, especially if you're the injured party. You want to make sure you're doing everything you can to collect the information that you might need to make a claim. Don't assume a waiver covers everything. So again, if you rent a boat and you've signed a waiver and there's a problem, or you're injured by somebody that rented a boat and there's a problem, you know, you're going to want a lawyer to get involved and see, did that waiver actually release the rental company or not? Because again, they very well may have responsibility. So I would encourage you to share this episode with anybody you know that is a boat loving friend and is going to be out regularly on the water. Again, if that's, you should take the time to make sure you've thought this through, that you're properly prepared. And again, if for some reason you find yourself involved in a boating accident and you've been injured, you need to consult with a lawyer that has experience with these types of accidents, has seen them, and understands the consequences. Again, we've seen really bad. We here at our law office, we've had everything from, some more minor type boating accidents all the way to death. And there can definitely be some serious injuries that occur out of these types of accidents. So listen, enjoy the summer, get out there, have fun on the water. I personally, I don't own a boat, but I rent boats. I take my kids tubing, all the fun things, right? And so it's a great time in the summer to get out there and have fun, but you got to do it safely. And so until the next episode, just be safe, be well, have a great summer.